This week I have two main objectives. The first one is to build and test a combat system. And the goal with the combat system is to get fights that reward good equipment, or even better, get fights that are sensitive to what kind of equipment you have. The second goal is to get the van ready for its first proper road trip. The plan is to go down to Germany next week and then drive onwards to France and do some bouldering in Fontainebleau. And for that, there are a couple of things we need to finish up. So there's a bit more furniture that needs to be built. We need to get it to a workshop and have some minor damage fixed. But then by the end of this week, we're hopefully in a good spot to get on the road, which is exciting. So think of these two situations. You're either facing 100 skeletons. They're pretty weak. I've given them 2 attack and 1 defense. But there's a lot of them. Or you face one massive dragon, which has 200 attack and 100 defense. But it's only 1. Because I'm not super good at math, I asked ChatGPT to come up with a combat system that takes 3 values, attack, defense, and durability, and then give me a couple of formulas that I can use to simulate the combat here. So when the hero attacks, which will be the first thing that happens, we'll take the hero attack value divided by the hero attack value plus the enemy defense value. Right? So 50 divided by 51. That gives us the chance that I will hit. So in this case, a 98% chance. And then what I want to happen, because we're in a very equipment-based game, I want there always to be that chance of your equipment losing durability. And that chance should be higher if you're fighting dangerous enemies. So there's kind of an inverse formula here where we're just taking the hit chance, but we're inversing it. So 1 minus 50 divided by 51. And then we're dividing that by 2 to make it a little bit less, which gives us a 1% chance for an attack durability loss in any of these 100 fights. And in order to figure out how much durability our weapon or equipment is going to lose, I'm calculating the defense value of the enemy minus the attack value of the hero. In this case, that would be minus 49. And then it will always kind of round up to at least 1. So I would kind of make it as a kind of clamping formula where there's a floor. So you always would lose at least 1. Cool. And then the next skeleton will attack. And then if it hits, we again use the same formula for the durability loss. So how much we're going to lose. In this case, 2 attack minus 50 defense. And again, we'll round that up to 1. So on average, we would deal 49 damage, get hit for 4 damage. And that would mean that we end up with a total of 252 damage to us in order to defeat all of the skeletons. Let's have a look at the dragon. We would deal 15 damage per round, take 120 damage. So we would take a total of 800 damage versus the 250 with the skeletons. And there's one additional thing I need to mention, because right now we're basically assuming that we'll hit 1 skeleton at a time, right? So if we had multiple hit, we go through fewer rounds to defeat them, so we only get 77 damage rather than 250. That would make a massive difference if I encounter a wave of weaker enemies. If I have a big sword that only hits 1 enemy at a time, right? I might really struggle with that. But if I have, 2 daggers or something, or a spell, or an axe that just like cleaves through like 5 enemies at once, that would make the hero perform very differently. And this is exactly what I'm after with this. To have a combat system that plays out very differently based on what properties the items have. Because then our crafting decisions, right? If you remember what cards I play and how long I wait to improve a weapon, or or whether I continue and just like make more, all of that will reflect in how the combat plays out. The first thing I want to write is a very simple combat simulator that takes a couple of inputs from us, a hero and a defined group of enemies. And then it takes that and it simulates those two mutually attacking each other until either the hero health pool has been depleted or the enemy wave or the enemy group is empty. They're all gone. So the first thing I'll need to do is to create templates or presets, or whatever you want to call it, that allow us to define the enemies and the hero. So I'll create basically recipes that we can fill in to our liking in the Unity editor. And then when the game runs, it'll grab these templates and presets and basically create instances of that it'll use in the actual combat. Right? So we'll do basically one enemy template and one hero template, and then it'll grab that enemy template, and if we say I want 50 enemies, it'll copy that 50 times and it'll change the values during the combat and all that, but the template, the preset, always stays the same. What I want to do next is add the first attack. So we'll add the hero attack, where we'll do a simple check on whether the hero hits or misses the first enemy in the group. And I'll use the formulas that I got from ChatGPT to determine whether or not the hero will hit. Good. So the next thing I'll do the same thing for the enemy attack. That should be very simple. Problem is, as of now, we're not drawing any health points or durability points or whatever from our heroes and monsters. So that is the next thing we'll do. And then lastly, I'll do the durability check on the weapon, where even if the hero hits, there's a slight chance that the weapon will take some damage. Okay, so what do we got? Ninja hits, dragon takes 50 damage. Yep. Dragon hits, ninja takes 200 damage. Ninja dies. Not the outcome the ninja was hoping for. But now what I want to test is if I take the skeleton group as enemies, whether or not that, because the hero will kill the skeleton on the first go, and then I want to see whether or not that first skeleton still attacks. So ninja hits, skeleton takes 50 damage, skeleton dies. Then we have 97 skeletons missing, 2 skeletons hitting. That means 99 skeletons attack, so the one that died hasn't attacked. Cool, great. So now the last thing missing is the durability check. When the enemy attack comes through, what should happen is that it doesn't go through as damage, but instead it should go through as durability loss. And not the full damage, but just the enemy attack value minus the hero defense value. I keep testing with both the skeleton enemy and the dragon enemy because it helps us understand these like two core use cases where in one we have many enemies, so we should iterate many times, and the hero should win most of those. So what happens in the win case basically. And in the other instance with a dragon, I made him very powerful, so with one enemy, and that should generally defeat us or inflict a lot of damage in a single attack. So those use cases are quite useful in checking all the things that can happen. I have started with the items. So we're now at a point where the items are created. The items are attached to the hero. I've created a shield, a spiked gauntlet, and a sword and some plate. All of this adds together to 50 defense, 50 attack. And I've also given each item some durability. So what's missing is the part where in combat, when we either want to detract durability from the sword upon attacking or from the armor upon receiving damage, that actually happens, and that if an item's durability is depleted, it actually breaks and is removed from the whole equation, and the character's attributes reflected that accordingly. So the ninja hits 100 times, makes sense. Then the skeleton hits. So in total with 100 enemies, they attack us, I think, like 5,000 times. They miss most of that. Then we'll take some damage on the shield. The shield breaks. The sword is broken. Oh, and we die. We actually lose. Interesting. But all the skeletons die. We found a bug. Ah. Okay. So what we've done is, if you remember, we created the condition that when all the enemies are gone, the game, we were winning, right? So the enemies can't keep attacking. But we didn't do the inverse. What we didn't do is make sure that when the ninja dies, our hero stops attacking. So that's what happened. Because right now we're saying while the enemy instance list count is over 0, so as long as there are more than 0 enemies, we'll keep going. But now we'll add a condition. So we'll say that needs to be true. There needs to be more than 1 enemy, and the hero needs to be alive. So that's interesting. Right now what we're seeing already is come into play is that the fight and the power dynamics in the fight change during the course of the combat, because we went into this with a hero that had just like fixed values, 50 attack, 50 defense, and every turn those values stayed unchanged and the hero kind of easily killed off all the skeletons. What we've now done is that the items that power our attributes will wear off. Right? Kind of, even if we're successful and we're killing skeleton, after some point, our sword gets brittle and breaks, and then suddenly we're a lot weaker, and our plate breaks and our shield breaks, and we're getting a lot weaker. So the power dynamics shift, and then over the course of the combat, we get weaker and weaker and weaker, and now suddenly we're no longer winning, but we're dying. Now, if I were to give our hero a lot stronger items, we would obviously be back to that initial scenario. And again, we're at a point where this combat simulation becomes a feedback loop, a working feedback loop for the items we put in, right? Giving meaning to the crafting loop of the game, which is fantastic to see. I'm really happy. Let's also simulate this with the dragon. The dragon hits a total of 4 times, and that is enough to completely obliterate everything. Destroys our plate. Hits again, destroys our shield. Hits again, destroys our gauntlets. Hits again, we're dead. This week has been very reassuring because I can already see now that playing out the combat gives interesting information back for the crafting. And I think that interplay is going to be a lot more fun than it is right now, and is a lot more fun than just doing either one. So I'm keen on testing that further and seeing how that develops. I'm pretty confident that this can work. You never know how fun it will be in the end. But I think the progress and the process is the right one, I think.